During the first week of my so-called retirement, my darling son, the same one I raised, clothed, and bankrolled through university, looked me dead in the eye and said, "We don't need another mouth to feed in this house." Charming, isn't it? 40 years of breaking my back for him, and suddenly I'm a spare mouth. A hungry seagull hovering at his picnic. And his solution? He found me a job as a cleaner. Because nothing says thank you for a lifetime of sacrifice like a mop and bucket. Naturally, I smiled, nodded, and agreed. Inside, though, I was plotting murder with a butter knife. But I didn't show up for the job. Of course I didn't. And the moment I didn't, he realized the truth. He had underestimated me. A rookie mistake. From now on, his life would never be the same again. Anyway, before I tell you how I went from family hero to public enemy number one, do subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening from. Misery loves company. Now picture this. Today was my last day at work. I came home glowing, practically floating, because finally, I was retired. Free. My chains of corporate servitude had been cut, and I imagined, naively, stupidly, that my family might celebrate with me. Christopher, my son, remember, dropped his fork like I just announced I was moonlighting as an exotic dancer. Lily's jaw hit the floor. It was all very dramatic. I smiled, expecting congratulations. Maybe even a toast with a cheap bottle of plunk we only drag out for special occasions. But no. Instead, silence. Thick, awkward, suffocating silence. Christopher was the first to recover. His face went crimson, a bit like a toddler about to throw a tantrum. "What? Dad, you can't just quit your job like that. Did you even think about what this means?" "Yes, Christopher, I thought about it for 40 bloody years. That's how long I've been slogging away." I told him exactly that I'd earned this. That we could celebrate. But Lily, sweet, supportive Lily, decided it was time for her dagger. "Celebrate? Chris, your father thinks we're going to feed him for free." "Ah, yes. How dare I, after a lifetime of providing for them, assume they might return the favor? Ridiculous of me." Christopher's face twisted in something new. Not pride, not love. No, it was annoyance. Imagine being annoyed at your father for daring to breathe in your kitchen. He leaned in, his manager voice on full blast. You know the one. The voice people use when they want to sound important at work, but are really just one missed coffee away from crying in the toilet. "Listen, Dad. I'm not keeping an extra mouth to feed. You need a job tomorrow. I don't care what it is, flipping burgers, stacking shelves, but you are not living off my paycheck." Each word hit like a brick. The man I'd raised, funded, supported, bankrolled, was now lecturing me about being a freeloader. The same man whose wedding I helped pay for. The irony could have powered the national grid. Lily nodded approvingly. "Douglas, you're 65, not 90. Plenty of people your age still work. My neighbor's dad bags groceries. He's 73. Lovely. So apparently, retirement is a myth. Like unicorns or politicians who keep promises." I tried to explain. To reason. Big mistake. Christopher cut me off. "You thought wrong. Do you have any idea what it costs to keep this house running? To feed you? To clothe you? I work 50 hours a week just to keep us afloat." The irony again. This house he's so desperate to maintain? Ah well, let's just say the irony only gets better later. Meanwhile, my dinner sat untouched. Meatloaf, my favorite, suddenly looked like roadkill under that harsh kitchen light. The whole scene felt like watching my own life in a funhouse mirror, familiar, but hideously distorted. "You're right," I whispered, playing the role of the defeated father. And would you believe it? His expression softened, as if I'd finally learned my lesson. Patronizing little sod. "Look, Dad, I'm not trying to be cruel. But reality is reality. We can't afford a freeloader." Dependent. That was the word he used. Dependent. Like a pet. Or a stray cat he was too kind to kick out, but too stingy to feed properly. They disappeared into the living room afterwards, chatting, laughing, turning on the telly like nothing had happened. Meanwhile, I sat there staring at their empty chairs, wondering how the hell my life had come to this. Eventually, I stood, cleared the table, and turned out the kitchen light. Retreated to my little box of a bedroom at the back of the house. The room was just big enough for a single bed, a sad-looking dresser, and a lifetime of bad decisions. The photos on top mocked me. Christopher's graduation, his wedding, holidays where we all pretended to like each other. Were we ever really happy? Or was it just good lighting? I lay there fully dressed, staring at the ceiling. 40 years of service, and my reward was to be called dead weight. Through the thin wall, their voices carried. Oh yes, they were talking about me. He thinks he can just sit at home on my dime, Christopher scoffed. What if he refuses to work? Lily replied. What if he just sits around watching telly all day? Then we'll take his pension and put him in a nursing home. Enough already. I'm tired of supporting dead weight. Dead weight. Nursing home. And there it was. The grand finale of the evening. My own son, casually planning to ship me off like unwanted luggage. I gripped the bedsheet, knuckles white. All I could think was, 40 years, Christopher. 40 bloody years. And this is what you've got for me. Apparently, I've been mooching off Christopher and Lily for 2 years since his mother died. That's how Lily put it. Mooching. Free meals, free roof, free everything. The way she said it, you'd think I was running a Ponzi scheme from the kitchen table, instead of quietly grieving my wife and trying not to throw myself into traffic. And then she added, with all the warmth of a cobra, he's got nerves of steel. Nerves of steel? Darling, if not throttling you with a bread knife counts as nerves of steel, then yes, guilty as charged. Christopher chimed in, of course. Oh, he had plenty to say. The old man doesn't realize how expensive everything is now. Utilities, groceries, insurance. He thinks it's still 1950. Yes, Christopher, exactly. I'm stuck in a time warp where petrol costs tuppence and milk is delivered by a man in a flat cap. Never mind the £23,000 check I wrote for your degree, or the £8,000 for your wedding. Funny how their selective memory always skips the checks with my signature on them. And here's the best bit. They didn't even mention that they're living in my house. That's right. Apparently, I'm the squatter here. If irony were currency, I'd be richer than Jeff Bezos. Then Lily, future queen of sensitivity, suggested giving me a deadline. 1 week to find work, or he's out. Perfect. And if he complains, we'll remind him that beggars can't be choosers. They actually laughed. Laughed. As though it was the funniest thing in the world to threaten to boot your widowed father onto the pavement. Casual cruelty, wrapped up in giggles. Like psychopaths, but with better kitchenware. I lay there listening, every word carving a little notch in what was left of my soul. And yes, I absorbed it all, the laughter, the dismissive tone, the way my son, the boy I'd once taught to ride a bike, reduced me to dead weight. And then came the phrase. The one that stuck in my head like a bad song on repeat. Nursing home. Warehouse the old man with other discarded parents. Lovely. What a legacy. Meanwhile, other people my age are retiring with gold watches, fishing boats, surprise parties at the country club. Me? I get ultimatums over a bloody meatloaf. If there's a patron saint of disappointment, I'd like to nominate myself. But here's the thing. Beneath the hurt, beneath the shock, something else began to bubble up. Something cold. Something sharp. Something resembling the beginnings of a plan. Douglas Cook, that's me by the way, was apparently a helpless old fool. Well, perhaps it was time they learned who Douglas Cook really was. Because yes, while Christopher imagines I've been living on handouts, I've actually been quietly investing, saving, playing the long game. He thinks I've been eating canned soup because I'm poor. No, son. I was eating canned soup because I'm clever. Like the time I invested $500,000 in Leonard Whitmore's little garage startup 25 years ago. That little company now employs 3,000 people. Christopher even works there, without realizing his paychecks are indirectly courtesy of daddy. Dead weight, my arse. So, all right, Christopher. You want to play games with my future? Then let's play. And spoiler alert, I'm very, very good at winning games people don't even realize they're in. I stared at a photo on my nightstand, Christopher at 8, grinning with a gappy smile, holding the baseball glove I'd saved months to buy. That boy grew into the man plotting to steal my pension. Congratulations, son. You've officially graduated from mild disappointment to villain in my origin story. But here's where he made the crucial mistake. He mistook kindness for weakness. He assumed modest living meant poverty. He assumed I was powerless. Tomorrow, I would surprise them all. I'd agree to get a job. Oh yes, I'd play the humbled father, desperate to contribute. I'd let them gloat, let them feel superior. Because sometimes revenge isn't swift. Sometimes it's slow, patient, delicious. And at 65 years old, patience is basically my superpower. The clock blinked 1:23 a.m. I pulled the blanket to my chin, finally ready to sleep. Morning would bring new possibilities. And my son was about to learn a painful truth. Humility is a dish best served ice cold. Sure enough, when I walked into the kitchen the next morning, coffee brewing, toast buttered, there they were. Christopher in his weekend clothes, Lily mid-spread with a butter knife. I cleared my throat, sat down, and announced cheerfully, "Christopher, I've been thinking about your words. You're right." The mug froze halfway to his lips. Lily's knife stopped, butter dangling like it had stage fright. They were waiting for the argument, the tantrum. But no. I gave them surrender. I gave them defeat. And oh, the suspicion in Christopher's eyes. You could smell it, thick as burnt toast. "You're not going to fight us on this?" he asked. I sipped my coffee calm as Buddha. What would be the point? A man my age should contribute to the household. I see that now. Lily blinked, clearly unnerved. This wasn't how the script was supposed to go. They'd come prepared for war. Instead, I handed them peace. And that's when I knew I had them exactly where I wanted them. Christopher leaned against the counter like he was auditioning for The Apprentice. Managerial stance. Serious face. You could practically smell the PowerPoint. "Well, since you're being practical about this, Dad, I might have a solution," he said, as if he'd just invented sliced bread. Apparently, there was a janitor position open at his company. Whitmore Industries. Yes, my company. My brain screamed, "Oh, this is going to be delicious," but my face stayed politely pathetic. "That sounds perfect. I accept." The corners of Lily's mouth twitched. A mix of disbelief and smugness, the face of someone who thinks they won a prize, but the prize is just their own reflection. "You're willing to clean offices?" she asked, her tone suggesting she half expected me to collapse at the thought of touching a mop. "Honest work is honest work," I said, meeting her gaze like a monk who'd achieved enlightenment via bleach. Christopher's chest puffed up like a pigeon on steroids. Monday morning. 7 sharp. "You'd be ideal, no complaints, follows orders, grateful for the opportunity." He paused, clearly enjoying the sound of his own voice. "Pays minimum wage, of course. But beggars can't be choosers, right?" Ah yes, there it was again. Their favorite catchphrase. The family motto, apparently. If we ever get a coat of arms, it'll read "beggars can't be choosers" in Latin, with a mop crossed over a broom. I nodded solemnly, like he'd just given me a death sentence. "Thank you, son. That's very kind." He practically glowed. "I'll need to speak with my boss, Leonard, about approving the hire. But I'm sure he'll understand. Probably feels sorry for you, actually." Leonard. My old friend. My business partner. The man whose garage I'd sat in 25 years ago, hammering out the deal that built Whitmore Industries. Leonard, who knew very well I wasn't exactly the mop-wielding type. I put on my most grateful voice, just enough to make them feel magnanimous. "That's very kind of you, to help arrange this." Translation. "I can't wait to watch this blow up in your smug little faces." Lily reached across the table and patted my hand. A condescending pat, like you'd give a dog who's just learned not to pee indoors. "See, this wasn't so difficult. You just needed to face reality about your situation." "My situation? Oh, darling. If only you knew. I appreciate you both helping me understand," I said, adding a dash of fake humility. "It'll be good to have purpose again, to contribute to the family income." Christopher nodded approvingly, mistaking my sarcasm for sincerity. Exactly the attitude we wanted to see. Maybe this will work out after all. And then, the piece de resistance. He pulled out his phone. To call Leonard. To ask him, without irony, if his father could be the company janitor. Oh, the joy. Fast forward to Monday morning. Christopher had spent the week practically giddy. Bought me cleaning supplies, outlined duties like he was training a show pony. I nodded along dutifully, secretly counting down to the explosion. At 7:30 a.m., I was in my kitchen. Coffee, newspaper, watching neighbors head off to work, blissfully unaware of the chaos brewing a few doors down. The cleaning supplies? Still in their bag by the door, untouched. I'm a lot of things, but I'm not a prop in my son's theater of smug self-satisfaction. 8:15, the phone rang. Christopher's voice, furious, panicked. Music to my ears. Dad, where are you? Leonard was waiting for the new janitor. Nobody showed up. My boss just tore me apart. Oh my, I said, feigning confusion. What time was I supposed to be there? 8. We discussed this every day this week. How could you forget? I let a pause hang in the air, just long enough for him to combust. Then, in my most fragile old man voice, so sorry, son. Age, things just slip away sometimes. This isn't about your brain, Dad. His voice shot up another octave. I vouched for you. I told Leonard hiring family was smart. Now I look like a complete fool. Oh, Christopher, I thought, you don't need me to look like a fool. You're doing a marvelous job on your own. What did Mr. Whitmore say? I asked, keeping the act going. He wanted to know why I was so personally involved. I had to explain you were my father, living at home, needing the work. The embarrassment dripped from every syllable. Interesting. Leonard, of course, hadn't revealed anything. Gentleman that he is. But I could imagine him raising one eyebrow, quietly thinking, why the hell is Douglas Cook's son offering Douglas Cook a janitor's job at Douglas Cook's company? Perhaps I could come in this afternoon? I suggested sweetly. No. Tomorrow. 7:45, sharp. Don't let this happen again. My reputation is on the line. Oh, of course, son. I understand completely. The call ended. I leaned back, folded my newspaper, and allowed myself a grin so wide it probably scared the cat. Phase 1, complete. Christopher rattled. Leonard amused. Me? Thoroughly entertained. Tomorrow would be Phase 2. And if Christopher thought his father was just the janitor, then this little charade was about to become the most expensive lesson of his life. Christopher's furious phone call was still bouncing around my skull like a cheap pound shop echo when I retreated to my bedroom desk. On it sat 2 manila folders, the sort of neat little props you'd see in a crime drama. Except in this case, I wasn't playing detective. I was playing executioner. You see, 2 months earlier, dear Lily had accidentally left her work documents on the kitchen counter. Careless. Almost sweet, if you ignored the part where she was embezzling her employer blind. Henderson and Associates letterhead, bold as brass, right there beside her coffee mug. One glance, and I knew something stank. 40 years of reviewing financials and balance sheets does that to you. You can spot dodgy numbers the way other people spot bargains at Tesco. Office supplies, $847. Equipment maintenance, $1,134. For a small accounting firm. Oh yes, clearly Henderson and Associates were running their office on gold-plated staplers and diamond-encrusted mop buckets. Naturally, I did what any responsible adult would do. I took photographs. Lots of them. Lily was in the next room, probably on the phone to Christopher, plotting how best to turn my life into a beige nightmare. Meanwhile, I was crouched over her paperwork, snapping away like David Attenborough documenting a rare bird. That evening, I rang Michael Richardson, an old mate and a forensic accountant who owes me at least 3 lifetimes of favors. I asked him to look into Henderson's expenses. Casual. Confidential. The sort of favor you phrase as just curious when you're really sharpening a guillotine. 3 days later, Michael handed me the truth wrapped in a bow. Lily had been inflating costs with the precision of a bored maths teacher padding exam marks. $347 office supplies? Magically $847 on her report. A $534 bill? She lovingly upgraded it to $1,234. Repetition makes art, doesn't it? By the time she was done, she'd skimmed off around $18,000. Not enough for a yacht, but plenty for her suspicious collection of handbags that looked less from the high street and more from a Paris boutique. So here I was, sat at my desk, folders open like the wings of a very smug angel of justice. On one side, Lily's homemade fiction. On the other, Michael's cold, hard facts. Together, they told a story of fraud so obvious it might as well have been scribbled in crayon. I opened my laptop, tapped into the anonymous email account I'd set up because nothing says fun Sunday project like creating burner emails, and began typing. Dear Mr. Henderson, your loyal employee, Mrs. Lily Cook, has been quietly siphoning your funds. Evidence attached. Suggest an audit before she redecorates the office in Louis Vuitton. Polite. To the point. Almost poetic. I even signed it off with a concerned party. See? I can do subtle. Hovering over that send button, I paused for a dramatic moment. The sort of pause heroes in films take before pressing the big red detonator. Would Lily lose her job? Almost certainly. Would Christopher lose his smug little composure when his wife's criminal hobby came to light? Deliciously so. Would I care? Not even a smidge. I clicked. Send. Off it went, carrying with it Lily's career, Christopher's peace of mind, and, frankly, my afternoon entertainment. I shredded the paper copies, made myself a sandwich, and sat in the sunlight like a man waiting for his Amazon delivery. Only instead of a parcel, I was expecting the collapse of their entire carefully curated life. Christopher had wanted to play power games with me. Sweet. But here's the thing about playing games with your father. He's had 40 years to get really, really good at them. And me? I wasn't playing checkers. I was playing chess. And Lily, bless her, had just moved her queen directly into checkmate. I'd polished off my anonymous masterpiece with a flourish. I recommend an immediate internal audit of all expense reports submitted by Mrs. Cook, with particular attention to office supplies, equipment maintenance, and consulting fees. Signed off, of course, as a concerned observer. Subtle. Menacing. Like a polite death threat from the tax office. I attached the works, side-by-side comparisons, incriminating photos from my kitchen table, a timeline that would make Poirot proud. 28 attachments in all. Enough paperwork to make even a solicitor cry. And then came the pause. The delicious moment before execution. Would Lily lose her job? Almost certainly. Would her career be reduced to ash before tea time? A strong possibility. Criminal charges? Why not? It was a Tuesday. But then I remembered her voice through the paper-thin walls. Maybe we should give him a deadline. 1 week to find work or he's out. Followed by that tinkling little laugh about selling off my pension and shipping me to a nursing home. Click. Send. Goodbye, Lily. Enjoy explaining your love of inflated staplers to HR. I shredded the physical copies, very dramatic, very spy thriller, and rewarded myself with a cup of tea. Phase 3 complete. Christopher had been humiliated at work. Lily's career was currently dangling from a noose. All that remained was to sit back and watch them trip over the rope. The front door slammed at precisely 6:43 p.m. Yes, I checked. I am nothing if not thorough. Rapid heel clicks on the hardwood. Lily stormed in, usually immaculate, but now resembling a rejected extra from EastEnders. Mascara smeared, blouse creased, hair rebelling against the bun with the desperation of a hostage trying to escape. I lowered my newspaper, all fatherly concern. Lily, what's wrong? She collapsed, gasping, sobbing, dramatic enough for a BAFTA nomination. I'm facing termination. Someone sent my boss documents, financial records. They think I've been stealing. What terrible luck. Who could possibly do such a wicked thing? She babbled about anonymous emails, bank records, expense reports, every scrap of detail laid bare. Honestly, it was like listening to someone read aloud my own CV. I feigned shock. That sounds devastating. What exactly are they claiming? Oh, inflating expenses, fake invoices, personal purchases with the company card. Fascinating. Henderson had acted immediately. Good man. Nothing like fraud to get the blood pumping. I laid on the sympathy with a trowel. Surely it's a misunderstanding. You're such an honest person. I nearly choked on that one. She shook her head, eyes wild. The evidence is so specific. Whoever did this has been watching me for months. It's like they knew exactly what they were looking for. Indeed. Almost like someone in the very house. Someone who'd overheard her plotting to exile him. Imagine that. Have you told Christopher yet? I asked sweetly. Her face crumpled further. No. How can I? He's already stressed about you missing your first day at work. Oh, the irony. The woman who'd gleefully plotted to warehouse me with strangers was now clutching my metaphorical hand for comfort. The cosmic comedy writes itself. She sniffled on. Suspended, external auditors, the whole forensic inquisition. Meanwhile, I made a mental note to send Michael Richardson a thank you bottle of whiskey. His immaculate records had turned this little revenge into high art. Maybe speak to Henderson, I suggested innocently. Explain your side. She gave a bitter laugh. What side? The documents don't lie. It's airtight. Indeed, Lily. Indeed. The crunch of tires on the driveway silenced us both. Christopher was home. His footsteps on the porch, the key in the lock. Please, Lily whispered, desperate. Let me tell him myself. He'll be devastated. I nodded, settling back in my chair with the satisfaction of a man about to enjoy the final act. The front door opened. Lily? Dad? I'm home. Christopher's voice carried down the hall, weighted with exhaustion. His footsteps thudded closer until he appeared in the doorway, tie loose, shirt wrinkled, expression flipping from irritation to sheer panic at the sight of his sobbing wife. I folded my newspaper neatly, like a man who absolutely wasn't sitting in the eye of the storm he himself had summoned. Christopher stormed in like some budget action hero, briefcase abandoned, tie askew, face twitching with righteous fury. What did you do to her, old man? He demanded, as though I'd been caught mid-torture session with pliers and a car battery. For the record, I was sitting in an armchair, with a newspaper. The only damage I'd inflicted was second-hand sarcasm. Christopher, I didn't do anything, I said, calm as a monk in a thunderstorm. Don't lie to me, he barked, his voice leaping a full octave into the realm of hysterical soprano. First you embarrassed me at work. Now you've upset Lily. What is wrong with you? Ah, yes. Classic Christopher. Skip the evidence. Go straight to execution. Perry Mason, but with fewer brain cells. Lily, bless her mascara-streaked soul, waved her tissue like a white flag. Chris, please. It's not your father. Then, dramatically, because she does love an audience, she blurted. They want to fire me. Someone sent Henderson documents. They think I've been embezzling. Cue gasp. Cue collapse. Cue Christopher's face draining of color, like someone had unplugged him. Embezzling, he croaked, staring at her as though she confessed to moonlighting as Jack the Ripper. That's impossible. You're the most honest person I know. Of course she is, Christopher. Apart from all the lying, stealing, and creative accounting, which, to be fair, does require honesty, if only with yourself. Lily sniffled, clutching his arm. Whoever did this, they knew everything. Bank records, receipts, even dates. It's like they'd been watching me for months. Yes, darling. Imagine that. Christopher's brain went into full loading mode. Confusion, denial, panic. All flashing across his face like a dodgy PowerPoint presentation. This can't be happening, he muttered, clawing at his hair like it was responsible. Not now. Not when everything else is falling apart. Oh, please, do tell us about your other crises, Christopher. Share with the group. And he did. My father here, he spat, as if I'd crawled out of the underworld to ruin his calendar. Decided to play games yesterday. Didn't show up for work. Made me look like a complete amateur. Correction, I made you look accurate. I tried to smooth it over. It was just a confusion about the time. No more excuses, he roared, finger pointing like he was conducting Beethoven's Fifth. Tomorrow, you're coming to work with me. No tricks. No senior moments. No nonsense. I'll drive you there myself. Lovely. Chauffeur service. Does that come with a mint on the pillow? Christopher, that's not necessary. And let's have no tricks, he snapped, veins bulging in a way that made me briefly consider offering him aspirin. Because if you embarrass me again, I swear I'll ship you off to the nursing home and take your pension. Ah, the sweet melody of filial love. Nothing says family like financial threats over breakfast. I looked at him, nodded gravely, and bit back the smirk threatening to escape. Don't worry, son. Today, everything will be different. He froze. Just for a second, the mask slipped, suspicion flickering in his eyes. But then he puffed his chest out again, whispering threats like some cut-price Bond villain. Good. It better be. The house sank into silence. 3 people, 3 crises, all blissfully unaware that every single disaster had the same author, me. Morning dawned like a judgment day, and unlike Christopher, I slept brilliantly. I rose, dressed in my brand new uniform, the one he bought me, and admired how very janitorial I looked. Perfect. The outfit equivalent of blending in with wallpaper. Christopher was already in the kitchen, shoveling coffee into his veins like a man preparing for trial by combat. Dark circles under his eyes, jaw clenched, the look of someone whose decided brute force will fix his collapsing life. Spoiler, it won't. Ready, he grunted. Ready, I said, sliding on my jacket. Costume complete. The last act awaited. The drive to Whitmore Industries was conducted in tense silence. 10 minutes of traffic, during which Christopher strangled the steering wheel like it had personally betrayed him, while I counted down the minutes to the finale. Then, predictably, the lecture began. No confusion about time today, he snapped. No illnesses. No memory lapses. You will show up, you will work, and you will make me look competent. I nodded with saintly obedience. Of course. Do you? He shot me a sideways glare, so intense I considered applauding. Because yesterday nearly cost me my job. Leonard questioned my judgment. My judgment. Poor Leonard. Imagine trying to comprehend why your business partner's son is dragging his pensioner father into work as a glorified mop wielder. It's practically Shakespearean. Christopher continued, voice shaking with righteous fury. No more games, no more manipulation. From now on, I'm in charge. I turned my head slowly, just enough to let a ghost of confidence slip through. Don't worry, son. Today, everything will be different. And it would. Oh, how different. Christopher glanced at me sharply, like a dog that's just realized the postman knows where he lives. What's that supposed to mean? Oh, nothing, I said smoothly. Just that sometimes it takes time to see things clearly. Like how a hangover really hits once the kebab smell leaves your system. The Whitmore Industries building rose ahead, a gleaming glass and steel monstrosity, the architectural equivalent of shouting I'm rich at passing traffic. Christopher practically puffed up beside me. There it is, he announced, eyes shining with pride and anxiety in equal measure. 3,000 employees. Multi-million-dollar operation. This is where real men work, Dad. This is what success looks like. Yes, Christopher. Nothing screams masculinity like a corporate office park and a slightly overpriced cappuccino. We parked up and I watched his hands tremble on the wheel. Stress? Fear? Low blood sugar? Who knows? I was just enjoying the show. Remember, he said, leaning in with that desperate intensity of a man one caffeine short of a breakdown. I do the talking. You stay quiet, respectful, grateful for the opportunity. The irony of receiving instructions about entering my own company nearly killed me there and then, which would have been quite the finale. Inside, Christopher marched through the marble lobby like a man leading his pet pensioner to slaughter. I followed with mop and bucket in hand, the world's worst cosplay. Employees streamed past, too busy clutching lattes and spreadsheets to notice that their janitor could probably buy and sell them 3 times over. Here, Christopher hissed, thrusting the mop at me like it was Excalibur. Make it look authentic when Leonard sees you. Authentic. As if my true passion had always been in streak-free shine and bucket maintenance. And then, the man himself appeared. Leonard Whitmore. Silver-haired, tablet in hand. Looking every inch the CEO who still thinks work-life balance is a form of communism. Mr. Whitmore. Christopher called, voice dripping with obsequious enthusiasm. Perfect timing, sir. Leonard looked up, polite but distracted, until his eyes landed on me. And then he stopped dead. Christopher puffed his chest. I solved our staffing problem and my family situation. Here's my father, the janitor. The words hung in the air like a bad smell. Leonard's face did a whole Shakespearean performance in 5 seconds flat. Recognition, disbelief, then a fury so cold the marble floor practically frosted over. Christopher, he said slowly, voice quiet enough to make grown men wet themselves. You brought him here? Yes, sir, Christopher replied, smug as a cat bringing home a dead pigeon. Leonard's eyes narrowed. Douglas Cook, one of the largest shareholders in this company. You brought him here with a mop. And just like that, Christopher's soul exited his body. His face drained of color, so fast I thought someone had unplugged him from the mains. His mouth flapped open and shut like a fish, realizing the tank's out of water. That's impossible, he whispered. 25 years ago, Leonard continued, now in full thunderous CEO mode, your father invested $500,000 into my garage. Without him, there would be no Whitmore Industries. Without him, there'd be no job for you. Which, incidentally, you've just lost. I don't understand, Christopher stammered, proving he'd finally told the truth about something. You're fired, Leonard said crisply. Effective immediately. Clear out your office. Security will escort you out. Somewhere in the distance, I swear I heard angels singing. Christopher's briefcase slipped from his limp hands, hitting the marble floor with a crack that echoed like a gunshot. Leonard turned to me then, his voice softening, concern pushing aside the fury. Douglas, my friend, what on earth is going on here? I straightened to my full height, finally dropping the submissive shuffle. I wasn't the janitor anymore. I was the ghost in the machine revealing himself. Leonard, I said, voice carrying the weight of years. We need a private conversation. In your office. And off we went, leaving Christopher behind to marinate in the rubble of his so-called success. As we walked in, I clocked the walls immediately, plastered with photos of Leonard and me at company milestones. Smiling, shaking hands, the whole successful partnership parade. Proof, in case anyone was still confused, that I wasn't just the family embarrassment with a mop. Christopher, of course, looked like he'd wandered onto the wrong set of a soap opera. Poor lad. His face was paler than skimmed milk and twice as tragic. He collapsed into a leather chair without an invite, like a man rehearsing for a sympathy award. Douglas, sit, Leonard said, motioning to the chair across from him. The very same chair where I'd spent years plotting business strategies. You know, the sort of thing Christopher assumed I couldn't do, because in his head I was apparently allergic to money and ambition. Then Leonard, bless him, fired the first shot. Can someone explain to me why my business partner was just introduced to me as a janitor by his own son? And there it was. The line. The curtain pull. My family's little pantomime falling flat on its face. I sat, feeling like I'd finally stopped carrying a mattress on my back. Leonard, my family's under the impression I'm financially dependent on them, I explained, resisting the urge to add, and Christopher's under the impression gravity is optional, apparently. Uncharitable. Leonard repeated, his voice suddenly sharp enough to slice a roast. He turned on Christopher like a lion smelling a weak zebra. Your father owns 37% of this company. He's been drawing dividends for decades. Not because he needs the cash, but because that's how investments bloody work. What did you think he did for a living? Christopher, bless his tragic little heart, whispered. Factory work. Manual labor. I thought he was poor. Oh, the innocence. The stupidity. Honestly, I nearly clapped. Leonard laughed, though it wasn't the warm, jolly kind. More the I'm about to fire someone and eat their career for breakfast sort of laugh. Poor? Your father could buy and sell most of Portland's business district. He just chose to let you think he was struggling. And apparently, he also chose to let you treat him like an old sock. Well, there it was. 25 years of quiet success, ripped out of its gift wrap and shoved in Christopher's horrified face. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I glanced at the skyline. Lovely view. and one I'd personally helped Leonard afford. Not that my son had ever noticed, being too busy auditioning for the role of most condescending human alive. But why? Christopher asked, finally looking at me as if I'd crawled out from under the fridge. Why didn't you tell me? I gave him the truth, calm as you like. Because I wanted to see what kind of man you'd become without money's influence. Spoiler alert, not a good one. Leonard leaned back, disgust radiating off him like a bad cologne. Let me understand this. You found out your dad retired, and your grand idea was to make him scrub toilets. Christopher scrambled. We couldn't afford. No, you couldn't afford, Leonard snapped, practically foaming at the mouth now. Your father has been paying your way since forever. Tuition, weddings, your house, all bankrolled by him. And you thought the repayment plan was to shove him in a nursing home. At that, Christopher's face crumpled like a cheap suit. I didn't know. Well, no one told you to be decent either, I said quietly. That's the sort of thing that comes standard issue with a human soul. Apparently, yours got lost in shipping. Leonard stood and strolled to the window, probably to stop himself from hurling a paperweight at Christopher's head. Douglas, what do you want me to do here? I shrugged. Nothing you haven't already done. He's sacked. His wife's off to deal with her little embezzlement side hustle, and Karma's already writing poetry about it. Christopher's head shot up. You knew about Lily? I met his eyes, cool as anything. I know about everything, son. Always have. Honestly, at this point I half expected dramatic thunder and an organ solo in the background. I stood, taller than I'd felt in years, the weight finally sliding off me. The question now is what you're going to do with this knowledge. Spoiler again, probably nothing useful. Leonard put a hand on my shoulder, the grand seal of approval. Douglas, you're always welcome here. This is your company as much as mine. Thank you, I said, meaning it. But I think it's finally time I retire on my own terms, not theirs. I gave Christopher one last look. Maybe this will teach you the difference between being poor and choosing to live simply. And while you're at it, you might want to Google respect. He opened his mouth, shut it again. Sensible for once. There weren't enough apologies in the English language to cover this train wreck. As Leonard opened the door for me, he muttered, Justice has been restored. Yes, I said. And about bloody time. And that was it. After days of humiliation, threats, and more family drama than a bad soap opera, I finally stood exactly where I belonged. Not as a burden, not as a charity case, but as Douglas Cook, successful businessman, respected partner, and a man who'd learnt the priceless value of dignity. The week of my retirement ended with truth exposed, respect grudgingly restored, and justice not just served, but plated up with a side of poetic irony. And that was that. After all the chaos, I finally stood where I belonged, not as a burden, not as a janitor, but as Douglas Cook, partner, businessman, and apparently the only adult in the room. Justice served. Dignity restored. Cue applause.